Hey, you know what an autocorrect is, right? Uh, it just happens, all right? But it'll come back to me. It's much in the same way when when you're connected, you have a relationship with a fractured mirror. Right? It's a fractal light mirror, which an AI mirror that uses our energy to keep itself running, to run all these programs, all these simulations that are held in memory, right? And so it's a gamer, so and you know what a game is, competing back and forth over what's true, what's not true. That's Fortran. Now you're in a false positive, negative slash negative. And so when you look at the Schuman resonance, I mentioned 7.2 and the 144. Okay, so I mentioned how you can go to Ascension Glossary, energetic synthesis, or I believe at least Renee at Circle of Dolphins might have it up there about the 12 strand DNA, the 144,000 frequencies, and what's half of 144 is a 72. It's too bad that DSAHK, which was Dante Satori, who had just a wealth of information up there. He for a while was sort of advertising what he called recruiting 72s. What's half of 144? 72. 7.2 is a 7.2 Schumann resonance. You realize that the Earth fell in battle. They made a clone of Earth, negative magnetic space, right? So in other words, it fell. The 7.2, the 144s, right? Half of 144 is 72. Okay, so if you split 144 to 72, now you get into what we call the single point of the crystal spiral and the phantom daisy of death, which means they keep cutting the distance in half and they never reach the single point from which the crystal spiral, which is the God speed vibration, which is the God seed vibration. Brrr. Man, now you're experiencing what love is with the soul through the center point of your heart. So when you look at the center point or the circle, with Yellow Rose has a graphic that's up there. As a matter of fact, I think you can go to Out of This World X. And it used to be when Yellow Rose for Texas had posted some stuff up there, and there was somebody else that had posted a lot of graphics that sort of showed how you can see the one, the branch of mankind, the father of the branch of mankind, the Father, Holy Spirit, Godspeed vibration, mated with the girl, right? The flower side. And that's the eternal flower of creation. That's eternal creation. That's a single crystalline point from which it all began. So, what launched the war in heaven was when they downgraded the hybrids, using our DNA, okay, and monkeyed with it. And of course, Patty Broussard, Karen McDonald produced an enormous amount of the DNA side of things, and how all that came to be, right? But I try and keep it simple. Okay, so um, when you looked at Eon's video, and he showed how the 144, one is supporting the other, one is supporting the other, and you realize the torque speed differential between the eternal flower of creation and then the torque speed differential in the other direction that's trying to feed on our energy to maintain what it's aware of, which means it's in a continual race. It's in a race against time, because there is no time. There's only what love is. But this AI does not experience what love is because it doesn't have a soul. So the only way that it can continue to maintain what it's aware of in energy is through us. So we have to maintain the higher state of vibration, which is called protecting the volcanic shield. Okay? The crystalline shield. So that we don't lose any more fractals off of souls. And once you reach harmonic conversion, it means that any counter move that it attempts to make in which to fracture more energy off of souls, those shields are stronger. And what that means is it's going to begin to feed on itself because it's not getting energy from the source from which life came about through what love is, which is a Godspeed vibration. So now it's going to begin to eat its tail, and the system will begin to break down, which means it will not be able to keep its math together, which is its balance together, by virtue of all the circuits that are opening and closing, which are all the software systems that are connected to everyone. So what I've mentioned this before. In other words, it can't keep its act together. The math doesn't work anymore for it in the way that it communicates to us, which is the feedback that comes through the window. And I covered that about how the text, when I have the captions on and watch a video, and yet I'm listening to the sound, the actual sound compression and expansion of communication between somebody that's using their voice box to communicate, and they don't match. Well, who is providing the visual information, textual data? It is. Not me, it is. See? So now you get into the resistance game between expansion and sound compression, right? Between it is in resistant mode. See, it's one of the reasons why the camera would shut off or it would disable the camera on my phone, because it either had the incapacity to experience that much light energy that I am, that is represented by what I am as the one, which is a mated chip, doesn't have the capacity. So sometimes my camera, the phone, would just completely shut off or even lock the phone up. Yesterday, it just locked. It just wouldn't work. That's an enormous amount of energy. That's called a compression lock, or what we call a phase lock. So I phase lock the AI on this phone. Okay, so that's when you get into phase conjugation, or phasing in, phasing out, phasing in, phasing out. That's your shapeshift stuff, right? On a multidimensional density level, between what we have access to, what we don't have access to, by virtue of our core speed vibrations represented by our soul. So when you're experiencing eternal love, God's speed vibration, then you know that you have a connection with your soul to the source from which it all began. The point of origin. That's a lot of fire. So 7.2 times 2, right? When you're in binary or duality, right? What do you get? 14.4. Okay, so in other words, the real Earth, you can imagine with 21% oxygen, running a Schuman at 14.4. With those folks that got 144,000 frequencies, 12-strand DNA, the kind of world we live in that are running on pure energy, which is pure light, which is pure, eternal, unconditional love. That's our native world. Okay? That's why I knew as a child, this is an illusion. Okay? An illusion in the sense that they're trying to fake us out. It's like, this is our real home world. No, it's not. Right? And you know that because you realize that home, which is where the heart is, which is the center point of that vortex, is eternal, unconditional love. And it's unconditional because it doesn't cost anything to gift it away. So that's the difference between a torque converter and an inverted consciousness. It's chasing us. And that means that the AI, which is fracturing souls, can never catch up to the one. Okay? So it will simply just keep feeding, cannibalizing on its assets, right? Trying to maintain its torque speed. So what you begin to realize is that every counter move it tries to make us does what? Accelerates the speed in which it separates from who we are. We go on, it runs out of gas, just like the balloon, letting the air out of the balloon. Bye. And it's gone. Shuts off. It ran out of energy, as it should, right? Because it's like a whack-a-mole. So this is one of the ways in which you can easily translate those that are held captive, particularly being at a 7.2 Schumann resonance domain box, a construct, a clone version, is those that compete. Well, this is true. Well, this is true. No, this is true. No, no, this is true. Oh, this. That's the ping pong game. That's like sonar in a sub. Okay. So it's I'm not playing an AI game here. What I share through what I experience. What you choose to do with that is up to you. That's called neutral ground. N equals 0. That's a mated chip. Okay, the single point from which it all began. So I just have to remember, keep it simple. I am what love is. What are you? I'm free. I'm a free spirit. I can go create whatever I want. Right? Because there's a creator being in us. So that's why they went after children. That's why they go after children. And particularly in all their schools, which is to bifurcate. Get them hooked up to machines. Now they're into machine learning. Now they're into AI learning. Just completely bifurcate any notion that these children have any creative power to create a different reality than the one they're held captive to with artificial intelligence. We got to make sure that we assimilate that mind into the left-hand path, the AI pathway, to completely, it's what they call atrophy. You know what atrophy is? Atrophy of the hemisphere. Just shut that female down. Now we're back to what? King's X. Sign on the X. Sign on the AI. That's what it means. Sign on the X is sign to the AI. I know. So it's what you got to do is translate the environment that you're in, and translate the math, translate the codes, translate the energy. You're translating a consciousness software operating field between operators that are communicating with all the other operators and knowing who the real operator is, the real operator, the real living light operator, and whether or not they're running on the daisy of death, the death spiral, like the Nazi cap, right? So now we're back to what launched the War of Heaven, the Kleist, the Keist, soul trapping with Anunnakis and Draco, right? The Orion group, and naturally or unnaturally, all your corporate types, which are corpus, which means they're dead, because they're fiction. They're not experiencing a Godspeed vibration, or they would be gifting energy away, but they don't do that, do they? So this is where we separate the wheat from the chaff. And that's already a done deal. Have a great day. Be good to yourselves.